Over the past week, I was suggested to play with Rona, but what does it actually do? For 2 mana, you get a 1/3 that whenever you cast a legendary spell, untap the Rona, and you can tap it to loot. After digging through formats and deck lists, I found this 5/0 deck list in the Pioneer format, which looked great to test out. The main combo is with these 4 cards. What we can do with Retraction Helix is give a creature the ability to bounce a non-land permanent. So using Rona, you can bounce the Mox and recast it to untap the Rona. Then keep repeating this process and you can mill out the opponent with the Excavator because it makes target player mill 2 cards. Now, 4-card combos are hard to assemble, but having access to Tyvar, Treasure Cruise, and Jace, we have many ways to draw cards and get through the deck to find the combo. Before we begin, this video is sponsored by Opera GX. Opera GX is my go-to browser right now as someone who games a lot because of its speed and customization. When I say customization, Opera GX offers a lot of it. With GX mods, you have access to a large amount of mods that are easy to integrate with a few clicks. I personally like the Cyberdeck mod, and as you can see in just a few seconds, it is already integrated into my browser. This comes with cool background music, keyboard sounds, and browser sounds. It is also quick to remove and disable mods in the sidebar, so you can try as many as you like to find the ones that you want to integrate. As a Colossal Dreadmaw lover, I use wallpapers in the settings so that I can admire his smile while I'm browsing the internet. My personal reason to use Opera is because of the CPU and RAM limiter. Being able to quickly close tabs and limit the amount of RAM and CPU my browsers are using has made it much easier on my computer while gaming and editing, and it reflects in my task manager. Download Opera GX now in the pinned comment or description, and thank you Opera GX for sponsoring this video. To start the first round, we have Gigantha as our companion, and we have a nice opening 7. While we only have 1 land, we have Consider and Rona to try and help us find our 2nd, 3rd, and 4th land drop. As we have double Fatal Push in our opening hand, we shock in our Watery Grave and say go. The opponent plays a Prairie Stream tapped, so they're clearly on blue-white control, but we Consider into a 2nd land, so now we can play the Rona. While Fatal Push will have some targets against blue-white control, typically on the early game it's not going to be good, so this Rona will help loot them away to find our 3rd land drop to resolve this Tyvar. With a 3rd land off the top, that's great, but I'm still going to loot because we want to get rid of these Fatal Pushes. Finding a Retraction Helix is nice because now we're working towards a combo. Casting the Tyvar here does untap the Rona, which gives us access to another loot, but the opponent has a counterspell. I still think it's good here to loot and then cast the Mox Amber so that we can loot again on the opponent's end step. With the opponent just playing their 3rd land and passing back the turn, I loot again with Rona, but it just finds a Fatal Push, let's put it to the graveyard. All these loots are so good because we have Treasure Cruise in hand and Treasure Cruise off the top of the deck. With Jace Vryn's Prodigy off the top with the loot, I'm going to discard the Mox Amber as we already have one on the table, and then we can cast the Jace Vryn's Prodigy, it gets countered, so now the coast is clear to loot again, and then delve out my whole graveyard to cast Treasure Cruise. After sending back the turn, the opponent has a 4 mana Wandering Emperor to exile my tapped Rona. With another Rona in hand though, I'm not too worried, so I'm going to play that and the Jace to try and flip that next turn. The opponent just makes a token with the Wandering Emperor and passes back the turn, so things are looking pretty good for us. With 2 looters on the table, I could go for the combo here with Retraction Helix and Diligent Excavator, but it's too weak to a removal spell from the opponent, so I'm rather going to loot this turn, try and fill up my graveyard for Treasure Cruise and Jace, and then try to combo on the next turn. With Jace flipping, we plus that, play our Diligent Excavator, and play our land tapped. The opponent cycles Shark Typhoon for X's 2, finding their 5th land, and they attack the Jace for 2 and pass back the turn. With another Treasure Cruise off the top of the deck, let's cast the first one and see if the opponent will use a counterspell. The opponent uses 3 mana for an Absorb to gain 3 life and counter it, so now we're going to go for the Retraction Helix on the Rona. While the opponent does have the counterspell and Make Disappear, we still have the Flip Jace on the table, which will let us flash back the Retraction Helix to win the game. From here, the opponent instantly concedes the game. I also want to say throughout this video, everyone conceded to this combo because no one wanted me to let them mill their deck so that they could see what they were playing. Going into boarding though, I took out all the removal spells for 2 Mystical Disputes, 2 Duress, and a Cankerbloom because they could be playing something like Temporary Lockdown or Portable Hole. To start the second game, we have a very nice hand with turn 1 Thoughtseize into turn 2 Jace with either turn 3 Tyvar or setting up for a combo with this Retraction Helix. So with the opponent playing a tap land, we start the game with a Thoughtseize. Now, this is not looking good for us. Our opponent has 2 Lay Down the Arms, a March of Otherworldly Light, and a Wandering Emperor. Now the biggest problem with this is that our win con is with creatures and they have a load of removal spells in hand. So let me sum up this game. I cast Jace, the opponent casts a removal spell. I cast Tyvar, the opponent casts a counterspell. I cast Rona, the opponent casts a kill spell. I found another Tyvar, but the opponent found a Dovin's Veto. I cast my Rona, they cast the March of Otherworldly Light. Then when I cast my Gigantha, they had the Censor and I didn't play my land. So to keep my sanity, I conceded when they started tapping mana. Now game 3 started off really well. With a turn 2 Rona on the play and the opponent passing the turn, I thought I was in a really good spot because they didn't have a kill spell. Until I realized the opponent played a Field of Ruin. And if you don't know, I only have one basic in play and I only have one basic in my deck. So this is Stone Rain and could become a problem. Yes, my opponent drew 3 Field of Ruins along with their removal and counter spells to completely mana screw me and lock me out of the game. Very fun way to play Magic the Gathering. Now it's clear that the biggest flaw of this deck is that it loses to removal and counter spells. So guess what magical line paired against me next? Starting the second round, game 1 on the play, we have to mulligan our opening 7 because it has bad mana. Same with this 6, just bad mana and no way to draw the second land. But our 5 is pretty decent with a turn 1 Thoughtseize into turn 2 Rona. I decide to bottom a Consider and a Thoughtseize because we're going to use this Rona to fill up our graveyard for Treasure Cruise and we can start off the game with a Thoughtseize. The opponent's hand is a Prismari command and a Fable of the Mirror Breaker, so we can take the Fable and leave them with the Prismari command because it only deals 2 damage and Rona has 3 toughness. The game started off slowly, but we managed to get our Rona down turn 2 and start looting with it. We did find a Jace Vryn's Prodigy, which I decided to play because if the opponent wants to kill it with Prismari command, then they either don't get to loot or don't get to make a treasure. They decided to kill the Jace and make the treasure. With the Thoughtseize off the top, that's a very nice draw because now we can Thoughtseize the opponent, take that Indomitable Creativity from their hand, and with a massive graveyard we can cast our Treasure Cruise. Finding a Mox Amber and a Retraction Helix off the top is great because now we're working towards a combo kill. I decided to instantly loot with the Rona here on my turn at sorcery speed, which might have been a mistake because now I can't use Retraction Helix to save the Rona if the opponent has a removal spell. And clearly they're a beast because they find the removal spell off the top and Fiery Impulse my Rona, and now I'm left with essentially nothing. From here we never drew anything to help us win the game, and with the opponent finding a Sublight Epiphany to counter, copy and draw a card, it essentially killed us. Things going into game 2 were completely different though, because in the late game on turn 9 we managed to assemble a combo kill because the opponent had just a brick in their hand. Using Diligent Excavator and Jace we were able to flash back the Retraction Helix in order to win the game. But game 3 was the same story we had against Blue-White Control, the opponent just having Mystical Disputes and removal spells and Indomitable Creativity as a faster combo kill than us. It made me question why I'm even playing this Rona deck because we're so weak to removal and so weak to counterspells. I'm very interested in what the deck designers' matchups were because they did 5-0 and win a Magic Online tournament with this deck list, but so far in these first 2 rounds, this deck has felt hopeless. Things were so bad for me that I actually didn't win another game. In the next round, we managed to Treasure Cruise into nothing, and because the opponent was playing Soul Flare and had pressure on the board, we just couldn't really do much to stop the opponent from dealing a ton of damage to us. Then in the second game, I thought I had a good opening hand because we had a turn 1 Thoughtseize and then leading up to trying to cast Treasure Cruise, but after casting Thoughtseize on the opponent, they had double Thoughtseize and Collective Brutality to strip my whole hand and essentially win the game. The opponent eventually found a Blood for Bones off the top of the deck to reanimate a big dino and kill me. I want to end this video with a clip from the 4th round when I was 0-3. I played a turn 3 Tyvar, and the opponent followed up with a turn 4 Slaughter Games to exile all the Ronas from my deck, essentially making it very hard for me to win because the opponent's a mid-range deck and they'll just kill every creature I play to try and attack them for lethal. Yes, it got to the point where I played against Slaughter Games. Overall, that's going to be mission failed. We're going to drop from this tournament. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I'm not sure about this deck.